Whoa, we're back for some Bleach Soul Resonance, and we have got the hotfix patch, I guess, for True Shikai Ichigo. Real quick up top, we're going to be comboing this video first with a look at the changes, fixes to True Shikai Ichigo, and also talking about character strength. So if you just want the tier list portion of this video, go into the timestamp, it's down there, I'm sure. But for now, we're going to look at the changes, the fixes, and then I'll do a quick run off camera and we'll see the damage. I guess we'll just, see how that works out. So, weapon stamp, Vessel of the King's Power optimization, releasing the skill Gentsuga Tensho now immediately increases spiritual power gained from the next two techniques by 100%. Follow up attack no longer required. Optimize the hit feedback and visual impact when charging the technique. Gentsuga Tensho. Let's go. Optimize interruption, resistance, and control handling for select skills. This is the big one. Fixed the visual effect issue upon releasing the ultimate. Gentsuga Jujisho. Fixed an issue causing certain sound effects to play abnormally. Optimized Nellel's performance in auto battle. So again, pretty sparse. This sort of like speaks to a, I guess, like expectation issue, or maybe it's not an issue. I don't know. With new characters, which is, while there are like bugs that obviously need to be fixed with this character's optimizations with things like the, getting hit and just dying. I think True Shikai Ichigo was the best DPS in the game the moment he released, and I think he continues to be the best DPS in the game now. But there is sort of like a misunderstanding, I feel like, when a lot of the characters release. I mean, at this point, True Shikai Ichigo didn't need real buffs. Grimjo got them. I don't think he needed them at all. Okieta got them. They were mostly just like the little bumps. Soifon got them, but they were like bumps. Like, I feel like people treat every buff that comes to the game a lot like they treated the Grimjo one, which were extremely substantial. A case of the character being released weak. And so when they hear that a character is going to get anything at all, they sort of like prime themselves, maybe the character's not good enough yet, or, what have you. And I just don't really think that's almost ever been the case, if I'm honest. So, like in recent times, I really can only remember Kenpachi being a super flagrant version of this. But White Ichigo obviously didn't need anything. He got like fixes for consistency, which I don't really count. I mean, even Kenpachi's post-release buffs weren't like crazy during the White Ichigo patch. Again, Okieta went up a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. The expectation of like, we're gonna get, buffs this time and it's gonna make the character number one. It's like, he was number one when he released. Pretty clearly, he was number one. I don't know if that was like a debatable thing. One thing we did just get, by the way, are the extremely useful stat lock certificates. If you're a newer returning player, these are extremely useful because they allow you to essentially guarantee a targeted craft. So you could pick the main stat and then 2 advanced stats. And I mean, if you get 2 out of 4 great advanced stats as a new player, you're pretty happy. If you get 3 out of 4 good stats, advanced stats as a new player, you're probably keeping that piece. I do it a lot. It's very rare that you're gonna get 4 out of 4 stats with a main stat match. So I call that a win. I mean, that's a great product right there. So getting those for free are really nice. I hope they continue to add those in as we, go along. Obviously, they buffed Nellel's like AI, but I mean, that doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess you could do better in some like guild battles and the like, but I don't really care. I'm still by the way, even now, I'm still using this team when I do like auto battle, in like guild wars or what have you. This is still like, I still feel like this is like the best auto battle team in the game, but that's neither here or there. I'm going to pause this and come back when we're done with the damage, and we'll just take a look and then we'll get to the tier list, right? There's about a 488 million total damage run, 4 million DPS, 306 million from Ichigo, 177 million from Nellel, and 4 million from Ayurdi. whipped that up pretty fast. Like, didn't really notice much of a change. I'm sure there is some. Maybe I wasn't taking advantage of it, but as you can see, I mean, bunch of ultimates and so on and so forth. Pretty samey. I mean, he just does a lot of damage. Like, he's kind of the best at B0. He's the GOAT. So we'll see. Like I said, if you still wanted a dupe, I do think his B1 is extremely worth considering, but beyond that, I think his B0 shows out more than enough. He's also around for 78 more days, so don't feel rushed to go out and grab a dupe of a character that you could wait until the end of the celebration for. Like, that's the biggest thing about this celebration. You could literally just wait until the end and then grab a dupe of any of the characters, you know, B0 all of them, and then if you really want to push it, grab a B1 of any of them. You know, maybe one of them because we don't know, maybe Candace ends up being the best character they released all, you know, 8 months of this game existing or what have you. So just wait and we'll see, but it seems pretty good to me. We'll get into the tier list now. So last time we looked at this list, this is how I was feeling about the game state. We just wanted an extra, you know, bit of power for Ulquieta off of an Aizen. Aizen was at the very end because I do think he has just run his course. That just is how it is. Nellel was moved up, but I also had a character like Soifon and White Ichigo just sort of barely not edging out a character like Mayuri, who is just so infinitely powerful. It's sort of hard to compare to Mayuri's just overall value in the game currently, but we do have a change to make because I do think it is warranted, and we're going to make that change right now. So, and there we go. We'll go ahead and slot a little space in for the GOAT here. I'm gonna put these two right here and call that a day. I think. I do think that, I mean, it makes sense. The newest characters. Also, I just feel like they got amped a bunch. The reason that a character like Grimjo isn't here just is because I feel as though Ulquieta is only held back by his tactics. Same with Thrust Ichigo. But in the case of Grimjo, he has his team. I mean, you could say that, you know, Mayuri is going to be replaced by like a strike support, but the reality of that situation really is that Mayuri is already giving a ton of support to Grimjo. A ton. Now, it is not inconceivable that they could end up getting a lot more from a dedicated strike support. I'm not saying that's impossible, but if they go much higher than Mayuri, then we're going to end up having to look at this entire list and be like, okay, I guess he's down here actually. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't at this point get much better for supports until we see it. So until we see it, and you already are using Mayuri, I have to assume that that is your like apex for now, right? And the releasing of a strike support is just going to help lock up that team so that you can move Mayuri around to different teams, right? That is just my current read. My current read is that these supports will release and it will allow them to sort of shift away. Now, if Bambi ends up replacing Kenpachi, and I would assume that character is going to go right up here, if not over True Shikai Ichigo, because that character is going to have access to White Ichigo, who I think, even though that group will not have a dedicated support, I do think White Ichigo is just that much better than Nellel by and large for like most players. So if you have White Ichigo, you know, thumbs up for you. And the value of a White Ichigo also is that he just does not require dupes. But yeah, I'm thinking this is how the game probably looks. I really wouldn't move Gin down or anything. I think he's just really powerful still, and I think he's extremely value still. There's no reason to move him down. If you have him, you could just end up skipping True Shikai Ichigo if you really wanted. You don't absolutely need to pull on a character you don't want to when Gin, again, Gin just synergizes the best with Nellel and Mayuri currently. So for all of you who don't want True Shikai Ichigo, you just don't care, you do have still the best auto team in the game, and until they change content, there's no reason why Gin isn't just like a free to play, you know, quote unquote free to play option over True Shikai Ichigo, whereas like there really is no comparing Ulquieta and Hitsugaya, for example, or Kenpachi and Bankai Ichigo with White Ichigo taken into account. Like, that's just sort of where the game is. Is there anyone else that's really interesting? I don't want to like dwell on this too long, just because I think that the list sort of is the list. I think when we get the remainder of the 2IBW characters, we could have a bigger conversation about where the game is in total. But right now, what I want to say is this group being introduced means we're probably going to end up shaking up this list quite a bit more, because there is now a like obvious gap in DPS quality. I wouldn't say that a B0 and Okieta are like this far apart, but maybe you could make that argument once you start talking about B1, and then maybe it comes back at B2 or what have you. But I would just say that with neither of them having their optimal tactics character, I don't feel good separating them. I feel like they're very strong together. Just like as a pair, they feel like the DPS characters who run the game, right? Obviously my experience again though is with B0 for both of those characters, and my experience with Grimjo is actually B1. So to Grimjo's like almost like detriment, I have experience with him and I'm still quite a bit more impressed by Ichigo and Okieta, who are on makeshift teams for now. Not to take anything away from Grimjo, I think the GOAT's still the king, but when I think of Grimjo, I think of like a Kenpachi power. And when I think of Trishikai Ichigo and Okieta, I'm like, there's no one there. There's no one there. So I do expect Bambi to sort of be in this range, maybe even up here, because again, she'll be getting access to White Ichigo, who I think is just so powerful. But for now, we'll leave it there. Yeah, not too, like I said, I'm not gonna dwell on it too much more. Not gonna make this a big tier list video. We got one character, and I don't think the meta has been shifted too much by that character. That's the case with DPS characters. They aren't really the ones that move the list around. It's gonna be your supports. It's gonna be your tactics characters. DPS characters just slot in where they slot in. They don't really help uplift the other characters as well, other than like in the case of Soifon, who was released early. But I mean, even Soifon drastically affected how we view Yoruichi, right? So that is going to be the difference maker. Same with White Ichigo, drastically affecting how we see Bankai Ichigo even, right? So yeah, that's the list. Quick little recap. Buffs seem fine, but again, I do think that people get a little too on they ass about like, oh, we're gonna get buffs, we need buffs, because in reality they always end up being pretty minute, pretty minor, outside of some fringe cases, which we can always think of them. Aizen getting buffed, for example, was not necessary, but he got them and they're amazing. Hitsugaya getting buffed was probably necessary, but arguably still not enough when it comes to compares to like Aizen. Grimjo getting buff was nice, but not crazy either. He felt really good, but I still don't think it brings him over the edge. And Okieta and Trishikai Ichigo getting buffed is like nice, but again, I don't really think it was this like saving grace or anything. I think the characters were already very strong. They have different problems, typically the team. So we'll see. With Okieta arguably not getting its tactics for a while, now that we kind of have a suspicion that Yuryu is going to be delayed until after Bambi, so that we can get a Yuryu and Trishikai Ichigo team. There's a lot of speculation rolling around, and it feels like Yuryu might end up taking a bit of a dive back to SS tier, especially if we get Yuryu Ichigo on the same team and that team just looks phenomenally broken. It's going to be hard to argue that Okieta is on the same level as Trishikai Ichigo with a double collab event team running around. So we'll see. But until then, I have been Lone. Like the video, subscribe, join the club, we all go make it, and peace.